Welcome to DevSecOps, the good, the bad, the ugly. This video cast series is about all things related to DevOps, but we do place an emphasis on making sure security is a part of that practice. Today I have with me Rob. Rob, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background in application security?
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach, thanks so much for having me. Really enjoying the series and just the opportunity to talk about it. Yeah, I'm a global application security evangelist for HCL, which basically means going around thought leadership, trying to raise awareness for AppSec and things like that. But I kind of grew up in the cloud space. I was at IBM for 14 years doing cloud technology and working with a lot of their hybrid cloud products. So if you're familiar with Rational and BuildForge and those kinds of things. So software automation, delivery automation has always been kind of in a spot for me. And adding security to that was a natural fit. So really trying to make security more friendly in that space is a big part of what I do day in and day out.
That's great. Do you happen to know Steve Boon? I introduced
I do.
Steve Boon, one of the first people interviewed on the videocast series.
Yeah, Steve Boon and I are really good friends. He's part of the Urban Code team. Fun story there. I actually did sales enablement with that team for about 5 years. So
really?
got to know Urban Code really, really well. Know Steve really well. His son, his wife, all kinds of cool stuff going on there. He's doing great. Just had another baby, so that's awesome as well. So, yeah. But yeah, we do a lot talking about value stream mapping and connection to security. So there's a good story there too.
Yeah, no, I thought it was fascinating the fact that he was an SC and moved, to where he's leading product management. So it's a great story there. So to jump into things here, Rob, I guess the first question I have for you, what's your thoughts about what does DevOps or DevSecOps mean to you?
Yeah, to me, DevSecOps is really kind of what it should have been all along, right? So we talk about DevOps, and the best definition I've heard for DevOps, real simple, it's software done right. It's getting things from conception to completion in a way that is effective and efficient, right? All of the kind of favorite buzzwords that we talk about. But it's really about knowing what to do and when to do it and how to do it in a way that's going to deliver value all throughout the pipeline and ultimately out to the customers. And when you talk DevSecOps and getting security into that discussion, security is every bit as important to an end customer as anything else is, right? If our apps perform well, but they don't handle our data well, we're not going to trust them. And if we don't trust them, we don't use them.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a big part of the conversation. But yeah, it's about doing things the right way and in a way that brings value all throughout. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. And something that I'm trying to do new. If you agreed with Rob, feel free to post your comments down below, just adding to that. That was great, Rob. I loved it. So what are you passionate about these days?
Well, these days, I'm really excited about just the opportunity that I think is there at the university level and with students to raise awareness for application security. Part of it for me is I have a 19-year-old daughter that's in college and talk to different folks at her school and then some other schools. Turns out somebody I work with has a daughter at their same age as daughter, but at a rival school. And so we started comparing and realized that there's just not a lot of awareness for application security in the university classroom, right? So how to code, you learn product management and things like that, but security in very similar to a lot of enterprises, it's kind of an afterthought, right? Or it's something that is added on when we realize that we need it. And so I started talking to some of the teachers, some of the different administrators about what we do to raise awareness and begin to bring that story more in. And what I've discovered is there's a lot of interest in people wanting to bring that in, particularly when we talk to business schools about overall risk, and several universities now are launching cyber initiatives, whether it's a certification or a degree program or an associate degree, that kind of a thing. There's a lot of interest in, they want to do it, but they're not sure how. Yeah. And so they're partnering with organizations. And so I think the opportunity to impact that space is really, really big. And I've really enjoyed just being able to go around and talk to folks and say, what could we do to get into a classroom, to guest lecture, to provide, tooling, to raise, best practices and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a ton of possibilities. And we need it, right? We know that there's a cyber skills gap that's coming, and when we look at the reports, right, I forget what the latest is, but what 2.5 million to 3.5 million unfulfilled jobs, depending on whose study you read. So I think the opportunity is huge to go out and make a difference there.
No, that's great. That's a great cause. If there's anything I could do to help support, would love to volunteer for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people watching this want to, feel free to reach out to me. I think this is a problem space that is bigger than anybody. And there's a lot of things that are happening now trying to address that. I think there's some really cool things we can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. So jumping into, looking at application security for enterprises, Rob,
Yep.
what's something that you found successful over the years?
I think the biggest thing that we found, successful in here is trying to keep things simple without being simplistic. So I'm a big believer in that kind of paradigm. And what I mean by that is we know that we need to be scanning. We know that we need to be feeding vulnerabilities back through the pipeline, but doing that in a way that is naturally consumable is really important. And I think where we've seen so much energy over the last couple of years in trying to get development into security and doing more security, the initial, I think, mistake a lot of us assumed was that if we start notifying developers that there's vulnerabilities, that they're automatically going to know how to fix them. And so I think something we've had some success with is really being able to approach that from kind of from two fronts. One being organizing what we're finding. So make it easier for developers to know where to start. So instead of getting this long, laundry list of vulnerabilities around the code, if I can pinpoint where you're going to get the most bang for the buck, right? So where do you start? If you fix this thing here, it takes care of these other 3 problems later in the flow, that kind of stuff. So we've had a lot of success in that regard. And then really reducing noise, I think, is the other big thing that we've seen success with, where what we're trying to get back to people is something that's actionable and something that is a real issue, not some kind of random, unlikely to be exploited vulnerability somewhere, deep in the weeds, part of the code no one ever exercises. So I think those are the things that we've had, the most success with, and really trying to get people on board there. Is just, make it real and make it something useful. So.
Yeah, no, that's great, Rob. So in line with that and keeping true to the name of the video cast series,
Sure.
what's something that was a challenge that you had to overcome?
So I think the challenge really in that is, again, not everybody wants to be a security expert, right? So the way that you inform people, and I think, our software in particular was geared towards security professionals and really understanding. So we value flexibility, we value customization, we value being able to trim and kind of fine tune in a way that fits your organization really well. But developers are about speed, and they're about wanting to be able to get innovation delivered quickly. And they don't like to be blindsided by vulnerabilities that come, 2 weeks later, or when a QA team kind of comes in and finds something. So in the same way that they want to do a build and kind of get a sanity check on its performance and its capabilities and its functional testing as part of that build, we want to make security that same part, but to be a natural part of what they're doing, not just another, thing that we have to go fix. So I think that getting that part right has been a difficult challenge for a lot of people. And I think because you have to fit into an organization's process, that really means you've got to understand what they're doing first and be able to kind of adapt and align where they are. So we've seen everything from folks that just want to do scans because it's a compliance checklist and, they have to, and so they're scanning for the sake of scanning, to ones that have gone and implemented security champions and are really making it part of the process. But the challenge, for us in the space is it's a little bit different for every organization.
That's awesome, Rob. So we're coming up on time for what LinkedIn allows for the video
Sure.
here. But if you're interested in getting involved with the universities like Rob was talking about, please ping them, let them know. Thanks so much, Rob. Appreciate it.
You bet, Zach. Thanks for having me.